always will be a Seahawk through and through.
He is tremendous. Wilson has protection. Wilson's going deep and reaching for it and making the one-handed grab is Tyler Lockett.
Surveys, nowhere to go, and back in the end zone. Touchdown! What a catch by Tyler Lockett.
Smith gets a pocket clean. Open is Lockett down the sideline inside the 10. Cuts back. Touchdown, Seattle. Can really start to take off.
Geno gonna go deep down the sideline. Got a man. Touchdown. Tyler Lockett.
Smith. Pressure coming. Floats it out for Lockett. Can he stay in bounds? Oh, vintage Tyler Lockett for the touchdown.
The NFL can at times be a cold, harsh league. And that is the nature of competition. When you have some of the highest level athletes in the world all competing for a spot on a 53-man roster, the league can move fast. And you're expected to move fast along with it or get left behind. But in the search for the next big thing, constantly, it is important sometimes to take a step back and appreciate the players who were not only there for a good time, and they provided plenty of those, but those who were also there for a long time. Welcome back to State of the Association. I'm your host, Nash Roberts, and today we are talking about Tyler Lockett and the art of becoming a franchise legend. I want to start off by talking about the on-the-field product for Lockett. And this is someone who was consistently a very, very good wide receiver for the Seahawks, a very reliable player. And that is so crucial in the modern NFL as social media has gotten bigger and bigger annually, and short-form highlights become the main method of digesting the game for people who might not have the time to sit down and watch the football game for 3 hours. So often, consistency can go underappreciated. You might see Jamar Chase making highlight reel plays on his way to winning the Triple Crown. Justin Jefferson wowing us year in, year out. But so often, a player can impact the game at a high level, even if they're not necessarily doing all of that. And this is particularly true in the case of Tyler Lockett, in which consistency is key. He has never been one of the far and away best wide receivers in the NFL, but over a 10-year career, he has accumulated over 8,500 yards, and during one stretch had 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons. And it is so important to have someone like that on your team, because you always have that safety net for a quarterback. Because so often we see a team where they might be trying to develop someone, for example. Think of the Sam Darnold Jets, where they're trying to develop this young quarterback, but they don't have a lot of talent around him. And as a result of that, the quarterback is not put in a position to succeed. And part of that might fall on him, but part of it is just because he doesn't have a lot to work with. And then you take a look at this past year with Sam Darnold, and all of a sudden, he looks like one of the best quarterbacks, statistic-wise, in the entire NFL. There were MVP conversations near the start of the year for him, with guys like Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson during the second half of the season to throw to. A safety net is so important for a quarterback. And you think about the Seattle Seahawks, Russell Wilson was the franchise guy there for a long time. And after he left, Geno Smith comes in and he's expected to be a bridge quarterback, maybe a 1-year rental. But he's been their solidified starting quarterback for a few years now, and there's been some really good moments in there. And a large part of that is due to Tyler Lockett making that adjustment easier. And at the same time, it also allows opportunities for guys like his fellow wide receivers in DK Metcalf and Jackson Smith and Jigba to become the best versions of themselves as well. It's one thing to be a very talented wide receiver in your own right, but if you are that, you're going to attract some attention from the defense. But if you're able to add another high caliber wide receiver to your offense, all of a sudden defenses have to respect not just one passing threat, but two. And as a result, that it becomes harder to game plan. And all of a sudden, in theory, maybe your stats would go down, your production would go down because you've got someone to share the targets with. But in actuality, it makes the game easier for all involved. Whether it's the quarterback having more options to throw to that he can trust, or the wide receivers who don't have to take all of the bulk of the defensive attention, but instead are allowed to roam more freely and do what they do best. And that's when you have a duo. And then you add in Jackson Smith and Jigba these last couple years, and the Tyler Lockett effect is really noticeable. Because this past season, Lockett had about 600 yards, and that was definitively the lowest that he had for quite a few seasons now. And with his age, that can be expected given the lifespan of a position like wide receiver, especially. But you could ultimately never necessarily count Lockett out, and you kind of had a dynamic offense with a great wide receiver trio, perhaps the best in the entire NFL. And Tyler Lockett was definitively a part of that because of one, his veteran presence, which really allowed him to mentor JSN. Because ultimately, when you spend so much time in the NFL, you develop a great mind for the game, and especially at the wide receiver position, as you age, maybe your athleticism declines. But as a result of that, you have to find new ways to be able to still affect the game at a high level, in spite of maybe your athleticism dipping a little bit. And so with that, you develop an even greater mind for the game of football. And I think Tyler Lockett is a great example of that. And that knowledge that he accumulated over his 10-year career to this point, I think that's going to do wonders for the development of Jackson Smith and Jigba. And we saw the success that he had in this trio last year, but now Tyler Lockett has been released, and DK Metcalf wants out. So we're going to get a chance to see JSN as the true definitive number one option on this team. And with that, I think that this following season, we're going to see a lot of the manner in which Tyler Lockett allowed for JSN to develop and learn from him. Because coming into the NFL is a major adjustment. You've got these defenses, and their one goal in mind is to stop you. Because guess what? That's how they're making money. By trying to be the best corner, defensive back, even linebacker, anyone in coverage that they can be. And you have to be able to work around that. And the best of the best are the ones that find longevity in the NFL. And they find a way to do it in multiple roles. And so for Jason this past year, it was having the help of a guy like DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. But this following year, it's going to fall a lot more on his shoulders. But with the mentorship of Tyler Lockett, I think that Jason is going to be ready for the task. And that is in large part due to number 16. And then we get to point number 2 with the development of JSN, aside from the mentorship, and that is, of course, just making the game easier. And then you get to what is my favorite part, and that is what Tyler Lockett means for the city of Seattle and the Seahawks as a franchise. Because Tyler Lockett kind of had a combination of it all. He had his memorable moments. I believe the first punt return he ever had was a touchdown. He had the 1,000-yard seasons. He had all of that you could ask for, but at the same time, he was also so consistent and so reliable for 10 years. It's very rare, especially in the modern NFL, which is so business-oriented. What is best for business? To see someone stick with a franchise for so long, through thick and thin, through the Russell Wilson era to now reconstructing with Geno Smith. Tyler Lockett was there for it all. And that's so rare. And not only did he stay with this franchise for so long, but also notably, this was, of course, the team that first gave him a chance. And that allows for the development of an even greater connection. I would like to draw a comparison to the Minnesota Timberwolves and their power forward in Nas Reed. This is someone who, coming into the NBA, was seen as having weight issues, wasn't sure how his game was going to translate to the NBA, but the Timberwolves, they took a chance on him. And at the start of his career, Nas Reed was a somewhat timid player, and it seemed like he was super focused on just not making a mistake, trying to be a positive player, but not necessarily letting loose, having a little bit of a lack of confidence and trying to be a very good team player, but at the same time, not necessarily having the confidence to develop his own style of play and affect the game at a truly high level. But as time went on, and the development of Nas Reed continued, Timberwolves fans would see as he developed more into his own style of play in the NBA and became more confident and accustomed to the speed of the league. And now he's a Sixth Man of the Year award winner. He is really a part of the core of this Minnesota team going forward, in my opinion, is Jaden McDaniels, Nas Reed, and of course Anthony Edwards. When you're talking about foundational pieces with this team, Nas Reed has solidified himself as one. And it's uber special because he's doing it with the team that first gave him a chance. And I think that especially applies to the case of Tyler Lockett as well, who, through the start of his career when he was a 600-yard wide receiver to the 1,000-yard seasons, all the highs of Russell Wilson, the resurgence of Geno Smith, to now taking on more of a leadership role in the final couple of years, accepting his role and allowing for the development of Jackson Smith and Jigba, creating a great wide receiver trio. Tyler Lockett was there in Seattle through it all, and they were the team that first gave him a chance, and that is so, so special to see a homegrown talent succeed like that. And with everything that he meant for Seattle, I would not be surprised, and he would absolutely be deserving if number 16 goes up in this stadium one day. And that is all for today's episode of State of the Association. I'm your host, Nash Roberts. Thank you very, very much for listening.